Hi, welcome to ChiroCore. We are back at Core Connections Pilates to talk about feet today. I'm Dr. Renee with Intun ChiroCare.
And I'm Kayla Shetter from Core Connection Pilates.
We are just continuing our series on ChiroCore and the combination of chiropractic and Pilates and what it can do for your body. So we've been talking a lot about more spinal stuff like low back, tech neck, and so we kind of are taking it back to the basics, and we're going to start with the feet. I tell a lot of my patients that the feet are kind of the foundation to everything, because if your feet are off balance or you have a weakness or anything, it really throws everything off, like, because everything is connected, your feet, your knee, your hip, and it travels all the way up to your spine. So we thought it'd be a good thing to just kind of start with the basics and talk about feet today.
Yes.
All right.
So I have these reflexology balls. They're usually used in physical therapy. They're spike, and they are a harder contact, so they're not as squishy as maybe like a tennis ball would be, but a tennis ball at home will work. Same with a golf ball. So I'm going to give you one.
Okay.
And some people get a little freaked out by these spikes, but you can start with just tactile, just the surface area, and work into the muscle as you get more comfortable with the spikes. So what we're doing here is just rolling from the center of the foot down to the arch into the heel. And what this is doing is just opening up those muscles. So a lot of times our feet are stuck in shoes all day, they get a little tight. This is to open up and release some of that tension. And a lot of time in clients, I find that they're very tight in their feet. Their toes might not move, or they get a little stuck in one part of their foot. So if you look at your shoes, you might notice how you walk. If your outer edge is more worn, or the ball of the foot or the heel of the foot is more worn, it gives a good idea of where you're placing your weight, which is going to, again, like Renee said, kind of trace up into the rest of your body and create these imbalances. So this is just nice to get at the entire foot and work through it. We're going to work through this kind of quickly today, but you could go through like the inner arch and the outer arch and then the transverse arch, which is the arch from your big toe to your little toe. And you can work by wrapping and trying to grab the ball. Sometimes my toes are really, really good at getting the ball and lift it up.
Glad you can do that.
But not today, maybe the left one. But of course, you would work through both feet, and you're going to notice after working one foot, you stand on it and it feels completely different than the other foot. So,
and this is something like you don't have to have these balls, correct? Like you would do a tennis ball or golf ball. That's what I usually recommend for patients that have plantar fasciitis, is to just kind of open that up. But you don't have to have plantar fasciitis to get relief.
Right. No, and I have clients that do get minor foot injuries, either just from repetitive motion, like if they walk a lot, if they're runners, they're gonna probably end up at some point. I know runners, for instance, always are tracking their feet, just because you're gonna end up with an injury if you're not taking care of them. So this is a really, really good, easy at home exercise to do, and you can do so much, circles, anything to kind of get into the foot.
I just kind of want to add, like she mentioned, there's 3 different arches in your foot. Like a lot of people only think of that medial arch, but there's actually 3 different arches to your feet that are equally important. And if you do notice shoe wear that's not equal, something that I can do too is we can build custom orthotics to help balance that. So if you are really active and on your feet, that's something that we can do too, because having a really balanced foot is super important for everything. So cool.
Well, we're gonna show, so like I was saying, that this is kind of used for myofascial release. It's more, I keep dropping it. I don't know why I'm dropping this.
It's all good.
But yes, this is more just to kind of work through the foot, but then we do use our equipment in the studio here. We're gonna show you in a moment, that is to strengthen those muscles. So we're gonna hop on, let's go on the trap table and we'll show from there.
Okay,
all right.
Perfect.
Thank you. All right, so we're gonna hop on the Cadillac in a moment here at the trap table to show some footwork. We're going to be talking about how this can strengthen the muscles and work through the ankles, the toes, and the lower part of the leg. I know you mentioned something maybe about like injuries or how we can work through that strengthening.
So many people have rolled an ankle, like you can recover from it pretty quickly. However, with constant repetitive motion on something that has a weakness, those little intrinsic muscles just get weakened. So something like this is super important just to kind of get that proper support in your foot to be able to have that proper motion in the foot that we talked about earlier. So so I think this is important for anybody to do.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, Joseph Pilates, I mean, this is the start of, and you'll see this in mat classes without the equipment. All the equipment are definitely starting off with footwork in some capacity. So, yeah.
And it's not as easy, like I just have to say this, it's not as easy as what you would think it would be, because I can remember when I first started, like to have only control, like without any of the equipment of your foot and not move your knee is very challenging. And I think the great thing about Pilates and what I really like about it is the isolation of certain muscles or certain things that you can move. Mentally, it's challenging, but it's also physically challenging too. Does that make sense?
No, I love that you brought that up, because you think, oh, they're just, our feet, but to work through your toes, to work through your arches, to work through your ankles, whether you're rotating or staying parallel, it does take a really deep concentration to isolate out those little parts of the foot. And so I have clients all the time that they'll start with usually like circling the knee when all I want is the ankle, or trying to grip the toes versus working the whole ankle with that. So it does take some mind.
I was the knee mover. I couldn't isolate the foot. I was the knee mover, and it took a long time. So it's a challenge for everybody at home to work on just foot circles. It's a huge thing. So all right, back on point.
That's okay. We'll maybe show some of that later too if we got time. But we're gonna have Renee lie down on her back with her feet at this end. And the spring is going to be, the tension's from below, so you're going to see that the spring is down. I'm going to just hold it up so she can get her feet on. And we're just trying to get her to press up and stretch through those knees and then bend back. And actually, I'm going to have you scoot a little closer, just so she's set up more perpendicular with the floor.
So toes on, or?
Let's do centers of the feet. So go to the center there. And now stretch those legs all the way straight and then bend the knees and pressing all the way up. And bending. Good. And we're going to show this from a different angle in a little bit, but you'll be able to see her knees, her ankles, and her toes are all staying nice and parallel. You can't tell exactly from this direction, but she is staying in a very nice position and not letting the knees bow outwards. I see that sometimes. Can you maybe just show? We'll show that later too, but let the knees kind of open. Yes, so I sometimes see that discrepancy of when we're bending and pressing. And now let's do a couple with the heels on so you can readjust. And same thing, just pressing up and bending those knees. And she's probably going to get a deeper stretch in those hamstrings right now. So just by adjusting the feet is going to change how we're working through the leg. And then let's go to toes. And we'll keep the legs straight for this one and work those ankles. Yes, and if I was really going to be an instructor and correct her, I would be looking from this angle just to make sure that her ankles are staying nice and parallel with the big toes, which is harder than it would seem.
Yes.
But she's doing a really great job. All right, and then let's try one more. Let's go heels wide with the toes turned out. And this is getting a little bit more into the hips now. We're going to touch on this later. But when she bends her knees, now she is going to let them track in the direction that her toes are and working into rotation. So again, we'll get at that at a later conversation. But now she's working her hips a little bit differently, working the lower leg. And oftentimes when people stand up, they do tend to have some sort of a natural rotation in their feet. So this is sometimes more of a more natural placement, perhaps, than the truly parallel position. Good. I'm just feeling a little tired, so come back to a parallel narrow position, and you can press up and take one foot down to the table, and she can also do single leg presses here. So really working now on that single side, watching that heel and the toes, that they're still staying parallel. She's doing a really good job. And then of course we would always do the other side, so switching. Exhaling as you press, inhaling as you bend. And that's another factor in Pilates. We always use the breath with our exercises. Right now we're just kind of working through things a little quicker than we would in a real setting. But again, she's staying very clean in her lines, and she's still able to apply her breathing technique with this. And then to come down, I'm going to hold it for her, and she can bring her knees in. Yes.
And I just want to mention, I actually fractured my ankle last summer and had to take a break just because with a fractured ankle I needed to take some time off because I still worked and wanted to heal. But I feel like this is great for people with injuries, because I know sometimes like when you have an injury you get a little bit hesitant about working that area.
Absolutely.
But I think like my ankle has healed and is probably back to being as strong as what it was after a fracture because of Pilates. So I just want to put that out there because I know we get a little bit nervous about doing something for strengthening after an injury, but I really have to credit Pilates to getting my ankle back to normal, like in a really quick turnaround.
And I'm glad you brought up, because actually I just rolled my ankle a couple weeks ago, and the same thing. Like I've been really hesitant on certain things, but it's fine. It's fine. It's just we have to we have to really listen to it, and we have to, be very, very mindful of it. But it's usually a safe way to work if you ease into it, and as long as you're paying attention and not overdoing it, or not triggering the pain. Obviously, you're stopping before it becomes a re-injury.
Yep, for sure.
But yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up.
Yeah, cool. All right, so now I think we're gonna do some close-ups.
Yes.
Perfect.
Cool. Okay, so again, we're on the trap table here. We just finished with showing some footwork with the tension. We're gonna show it now with just her own body weight. I'm gonna have her hinge her knee at about a 90 degree and then lift the heel a little bit higher, curling just the toes and fanning the toes. So as we're working through footwork, it's really important that the knee is steady and the ankle is still in line, and she's just working the toes. That's right. And go for 2 more, curl and curl. Then we're gonna stay open. She's gonna press from the heel, the arch, the ball, the toe, and bring it back. Toes, ball, arch, heel. And heel, arch, ball, toe, bring it back. Toes, ball, arch, heel. Yes, good, and keep working through that. So again, we're trying to get her to work through the metatarsals, opening up those toes, working through the arches. And like we were saying before, it's harder than you might think to isolate the foot. And we do have these joints through the toes that allow us to work, and sometimes we just get a little stuck in those areas. So we do footwork to get them to open up. Then we'll stay flexed, curling the toes, dorsiflex. And curl your toes inwards, and you're just rotating the foot in and out. And again, with this, we're trying to, here it goes. This is her bad side. I really made it work today. So I'm trying to get her to keep this knee steady and just work the ankle, which is a challenge for her.
It is a challenge.
You had an injury on this. Was it this?
No, it was my right. But this is
your bad ankle.
This is my bad. This is because of work posture.
Yes.
This is the muscling of this leg is just completely different for the other leg. Yes. If that makes sense. Because this is my stabilizing leg, and this is the leg.
That does the work.
Yeah, that does the work.
Yes. Okay, so now she's going to do ankle circles in and around. Yes, see, look, and now her knee is nice and steady, and just her ankle is working, and she's getting that nice fanning of the toes too, which again is a hard thing to get to activate. And then just go for some circles in the other direction. Good, good, good. And sometimes I'll even just kind of take the foot and rotate it just to get at a bigger circle. Yes, and then rest. All right, and of course we always do everything on the left and the right, so she would repeat this on the other side. And also, again, we're getting at a little bit of a grander thought here, but the pelvis is really important, that as you're working, that we're keeping the hips heavy, that we're not kind of rocking through the pelvis. And sometimes when we're really concentrating, we sometimes add tension to the shoulders or the upper neck, back area. So we want to try to relax everything and really just put the work into those feet, which is why it's great to come to a class and have those reminders in a session, because we forget those things when we're at home doing it on our own. Yeah. Anything else you would like to add? Yeah, totally.
I also think that, all right, in conclusion, I think just paying attention to your shoes and seeing how you track when you walk is a big thing. And if you need help with that, like both Kayla and I can kind of help with gait problems and things like that. So just reach out to all of us. So because feet are a very important thing to have working correctly, because the effects of it go all the way up to your spine. So I think that's it for feet work for now.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.